I don't hear. Okay, maybe I listen to this one. Who is 2000 whatever? You can ask 2000, unmute yourself and ask. Okay, I think this is the end of the questions. Margot, do you ask?
Thank you, madam. Now, at first you had B minus PX, X minus PYY is equal to 0. But in the second equation, you have a different thing. It's PX, X minus PX, X is equal to 0. So I'm also confused about that.
Okay. Okay, so first of all, PXX plus B minus P. Actually, when we use this, we have X equals PX over PY from the marginal utilities of X and Y. So we formed our equation 4. This is, I told you this last part is our equation 4 from the marginal utilities. So this is our equation 4. So what we do, we cross multiply and we have PXX is equal to PYY. If PXX is equal to PYY, then obviously it means that you can substitute 1. So our budget constraint, it has PXX and PYY. But since the two are equal, then we can use one of them. So PXX here is replacing PYY. That's why here we have 2 PXXX. And when you do that, when you do the mathematics, you have B minus 2 PXX. That's where we get the 2 from. So when you take that on this side to get rid of the negative, so you have the B is equal to 2 PXX. This is the budget. B is the budget, is equal to 2 PX. PX is the price of X, and the capital X is the quantity of X. And in the equation, we are trying to find the quantity of X. So you will make X the subject. And we say that X is equal to B over 2PX. And that brings us to that equation there. The same applies to Y. Here you substitute in PYY instead of X. So you have 2 PYY. And then eventually you have the quantity of Y consumed in equilibrium given by this equation. Let me hope that is a bit clear. But like I said, some of these things we shall repeat. Now, the question may be to derive the Marshallian demand curve. Of course, Marshallian is just to confuse. The word Marshallian is just to confuse you, but it is the demand curve you know about, you know. So like from these equations, these exactly are the demand functions. So this equation is the demand function for X, and that equation is the demand function for Y. So the same equation can give you the two answers. But the difference is that if they ask for a demand function, it should be in a function form. If they ask for quantities, in other words, like even if you knew the price of X and price of Y, and you know the consumer's income, you don't just substitute in and say, okay, let's say Y is equal to 50. If you say Y, you cannot substitute, it should be as a function. So you cannot substitute in everything. So you say, at least you can say Y is equal to B over 10, assuming the price of Y is 5. That is still a demand function. So that's the only difference, but the same function will give the answer to that. So here, this one just shows that the slope of the demand curve is negative. How do you show that? You differentiate the X, the price of X. Why we differentiate with respect to X? Because along the demand curve, which shows that you want to show how the quantity of X changes when the price changes. So that's why we said the X, the PX. So that is negative, because now what you are going to do, when you have X as B over 2PX, then when you differentiate this with respect to X, it will show you the change in the quantity of X when the price changes, and it will be given by that. Since it is a negative, then it shows that it is a downward sloping. The slope is negative. Of course, here, this is the same as that. But you know, sometimes differentiating a fraction is a problem. So you remove the fraction, but by rewriting it like that. So this one, where I say it is to the power -1, is the same as that. But when you write it in that form, it is easier to differentiate. So this one should not confuse you. So eventually, you know that it is to the power of -1. So you multiply -1 into the function, and then it implies a negative slope. Any question on that? I think that is done for now. We can continue with another section. When are you beginning? Because I'm also eager to come to the class. I don't see how you are going to even understand the next section without good explanations. Because this next section is, okay, let me first look at Guma. Guma, can you ask the question? Guma.
Thank you, Doctor. My question is about the notes, and because we have a different timetable attending this lecture for the first time, and I'm seeing I'm left behind. Where can we get your notes such that we follow up?
But I have 2 lectures in a week. One is on Wednesday, one is on Monday. If you miss the Monday one, you attend the Wednesday one. So that means you don't communicate with others. Ready? Sheriff? Okay, I think others don't have questions, because questions about notes and whatever are not questions.
Madam.
Yes.
I was saying that we can arrange for physical classes because FEMA always has free venues.
No, it is not about the free venues. It is about the what we are supposed to do. So they said, I don't know when the university is opening up for physical classes.
Because for real, we don't understand anything from here.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, that we shall, let's be patient. I think did you talk of 5th of March? The thing is that we cannot wait until 5th of March to start lectures. But then I know you cannot understand. So that's why I told you, just listen to whatever you can understand. When the university opens up, then we shall go through it again. Do you get that?
Okay,
so
madam.
Questions about physical classes, whatever, should not come here, because I've explained that, okay? Unless if you have a question on the subject matter. So if you know your hand is up and something is on, can you send us notes? Can you teach us physically? Then that is not a question, because I've explained it, okay? So we shall meet when the university opens up. When the university doesn't open up, I have nothing to do about it. Okay, so I see some 3 people putting up their hands, but I think they're also talking about these physical. Let me try one of them. Caleb, can see me?
Doctor, is the Wednesday lecture going to be a repetition of today's lecture?
Yes. It is a repetition because it's like I want to give chance to people who cannot attend this lecture.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, I think we can continue now. Let me see, Cyrus.
Yes, thank you, madam. My question is on that part where we are showing the slope of the demand curve is negative. Could you elaborate more on why you differentiated the X function to the respect of its price? Because I'm seeing it's changing X due to change in price of X.
Okay. Let me first explain that too. So that's okay, so he's asking about that part. So here, if you want to show that the slope of the demand curve is negative, first of all, you look at the demand curve. The demand curve shows the relationship between the quantity of X and the price of X. Do you get that? So it shows the change. We want to see how, when the price, we know that when the price changes, the quantity demanded changes. So we want to show that that demand curve is negative. So we have given the function by this X is equal to B over to PX. That is the demand function. So we want to show that the slope of that demand function is negative. So we have the X. So why we say the X, the PX, the change in X due to the change in PX. Basically, that is what it shows because that is the demand curve. So that's why we are differentiating, but without using the word differentiating, you want to find out the change in X when the price of X changes. So that is the dx dpx. And when in mathematical terms, that is what we call the differentiation. So our X is this one, which is given by that function, demand function. You differentiate it with respect to the price of X. Hope that answers the question, because that's what you are asking. Okay, let me share something else. Caleb again. Kansim again. Robert.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, Kansime.
Oh, sorry, madam, I'd forgotten to lower my hand.
Okay. And Chagulanyi? Okay, let's continue then. Let me share another one. So the other one is the substitution and income effects of a price change. Now, this is where the problem comes from. Oh. Okay, let's first understand substitution and income effects. We know that substitution means to substitute one commodity for another, substituting one commodity for another. So that's the effect we are trying to say. When if we have commodity X and the price of commodity X falls, then it means that commodity X is cheaper compared to commodity Y. So the individual, any rational individual, would substitute the cheaper commodity for the expensive commodity. But that will be occurring along the same indifference curve. So when the price of a commodity falls, it becomes cheaper compared to the other commodity. And so the individual would substitute that commodity for another. And that would be along the same indifference curves. So if he was consuming more of Y and less of little of X, then because X now has become cheaper, then he'll move along that indifference curve downwards to consume more of a cheaper commodity and less of the expensive commodity. That is what we call substitution effect. Then the income effect is when the price of a commodity falls, the purchasing power of the individual increases. And when the purchasing power of the individual increases, then he's better off. So that is due to the income effect. When we say purchasing power, in effect, the budget remains constant, but in a way, somehow, someone is better off. So that is the income effect in brief. So basically, when the price changes, there will be a total price effect. When I say total price effect, it means that the effect of a price change. So this total price effect is composed of the substitution effect and the income effect. Now, this topic is the one I want to teach when we are in a physical class, because there's no way you are going to understand it without that. And I think for this particular one, we shall do it when we meet. Okay, I think you agree with me, because otherwise you are going to be confused. I explained this well on the board when I'm drawing graphs. Otherwise, if I introduce to you such a graph, you'll be confused. You will not understand it at all, because I come up with this graph in pieces, bits by bits. By the time it looks like this, now if I just give it to you like this, even if I tried to explain whatever, I'm not sure. Let me try, but I'm not sure you will get it here. But let me just try a bit. So we start with the substitution effect. So I've already said the price reduction makes a commodity cheaper compared to the other. So when we go back here, so along that indifference curve, assuming that initially the individual is at point A, and now the price of X falls, because at A he's buying 2 units of X. When the price of X falls, X becomes cheaper than Y. So what he does, he moves along he substitutes Y for X. So now he can buy more of X and reduces Y, because now Y is expensive. So the movement from A to B is what we call the substitution effect of a price change. Hope that is clear. A to B is the substitution effect of a price change. Now what we do, when the price of X becomes cheaper, okay, we know that the budget line rotates outwards. So the original budget line here rotates outwards to the new budget line B1, B1. In other words, if the consumer is at A and the price of A reduces, then the budget line rotates. So he'll move to point C1 here on a higher indifference curve. Forgive my drawing, doesn't mean that these indifference curves meet, but assuming this one at C1 is a higher indifference curve, and it is brought about because the consumer is better off. The price of X has reduced, so the budget line rotates. Remember when we were looking at the properties of the budget line, said that when the price changes, the budget line rotates. So basically it rotates downwards, showing that he can buy more of X. So you see, initially he's buying 2 units, now he's buying 5 units of X because of the price reduction. So the movement from A to C1 is what we call the total price effect. This total price effect is composed of the substitution effect, which is the movement from A to B, and the income effect, which is a movement from B to C. Okay, so we want to see how Nabanja ask.
Mine is not a question, it's just a suggestion.
Mm.
Is it possible to get another slide and try redrawing that curve so that we like you explained from the beginning?
Okay, but it's kind of takes time, but let me try to do that. Thank you. Let me try to do that. Robert, you have a question? Okay, let me try to draw another slide here. Robert, ask if you have a question.
Madam, what's up with that red line? Like I'm not getting that red.
Okay, now let me try to do that. Now I want to I'm trying to draw the diagram. Now let's see how it starts. Okay. So first of all, we have here commodity X. You know, it takes some time to draw these diagrams. So on this axis, we have commodity Y. We have Y here, and then we have X. So the individual, we have a budget line. That is a budget line. And the individual is on indifference curve. The individual is on that indifference curve at a point here, maybe point A. Is at point A here, at the point of tangents. That is the original position. And at that position, he's consuming a certain amount of X. So let's say he's consuming X, 2 units of X, okay? Now, when the price of X falls, the first thing to be affected is the budget line. So we say the budget line will rotate outwards. So we want to show the budget line rotating outwards. So we can draw a new budget line. So that is our new budget line. We can make it in another color. Let me change the color so that okay, that is our new budget line. And it is because of the reduction in price. So it means that the individual is now better off. With the same budget, he can buy more of X. So he moves to a higher indifference curve. I normally do this and So he moves to another indifference curve. This is indifference curve 2. And let's say he's here at point, let me call this one point C. So the movement from A to C is what we call the total price effect. It is the total, so the movement from A to C is equal to the total price effect. But this movement from A to C is composed of the substitution effect and the income effect. So the first thing we want to do is to isolate the substitution effect from the total price effect. And now we go to the explanation of substitution. The individual substitutes the cheaper commodity for the expensive commodity, and that occurs along the same indifference curve. So I want to show this on a different diagram. So assuming that is the indifference curve, and initially the individual is at a certain point A here, assuming that is our point A. Point A like the one in the above diagram. So our point A is here. But now with the price reduction, the price of X reducing, commodity X becomes cheaper. So he substitutes the expensive commodity for the cheaper commodity. So along the same indifference curve. So he will move downwards to maybe point B here. Assuming we have a point B here. So the movement from A to B is what we call the substitution effect, and it occurs along the same indifference curve. But now when you go back to our diagram here, we saw that when the price reduced, the individual moved a higher indifference curve. And yet we are saying that the substitution effect occurs along the same indifference curve. So what we want to do, since the individual a higher indifference curve, which shows a higher level of satisfaction, we want to force him back to the original indifference curve so that we show the substitution effect. So that's basically, that is what we are going to do. We want to force, so that we show this, the movement from A to B instead of C. So at C, when we want to force him back, what we do, we take away the increase in income, the real increase in income from him, because why he's on a higher indifference curve and a new budget line, it is because the real income increased due to the price change. Now, if you don't want him to be better off, you take away that increase in the real income, and that is what we call compensating variation in income. So when you take away that income, we said earlier on that when the income changes, the budget line will shift. So this budget line, the red budget line, now will shift downwards because you are taking away income from the individual. So we shift that budget line until it is tangent to the original indifference curve here. Okay, so basically that's how we come up with this. So the red line he was asking is that budget line which occurs after carrying out a compensating variation in income. That is, after taking away that increase in real income from him. So the budget line shifts downwards until it is tangent to the original indifference curve, and that will be at point B. And so with that, you can show that the movement from A to B is the substitution effect of a price change. So if we use our examples here, it will be like the increase in consumption from X2 to X4 is the substitution effect. Remember, the total effect would be from X2 to X5, but part of that is due to the substitution effect, which is X2, X4. So that's how we have the red line here and the movement from that. But now at B, we know that the other compensating variation in income is kind of hypothetical. We know that when the price falls, the individual is better off. So like I said, we shall revisit this part because I know you cannot understand it here. Any question? Okay, I know the question will be still on the same thing. So you can reserve whatever connection, whatever question for the physical class, and we'll revisit that. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to look at what we can cover, which we may cover online, which may not require physical, so that we reserve Thank you for listening. I think this is enough for today.